my loves, official welcome to you all. And we are joined by the wonderful Debbie Lucas this evening, who is a fellow manifester. So we're going to be talking about lots of things to do with manifesting, I imagine, but also the frequency of joy, which I absolutely adore. And you are like joy personified to me. You are like a human sunflower, and I love it, and I'm here for it. For anyone who does listen to this and they've not got the video, Debbie is like Little Miss Sunshine and has yellow and sunflowers behind her. So she really is a human sunflower.
So I love such a lovely description. Thank you.
That is you. You are full solar plexus energy. I love it. So I will hand over to you to do your formal introduction, not just as a human sunflower. And then we'll dive into some questions and find out more about what you're up to and all the wonderful wisdom that you have to share.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that lovely little introduction. I've never thought of myself as a human sunflower, but I love that, and it's so aligned. Like I've got a pin board up, and I've got like sunflower pins and little bees and things. It's just because yellow is a happy color, and I call myself the Joy Alchemist. And it was a title that just came to me, because I tried on all different kinds of titles, and what. Joy is my word for 2025, and joy for me, and I'll talk a bit more about what I'm doing with that work around joy, but it is the frequency of how I want to live my life. And it's the frequency of how I've manifested a whole lot of things that we'll go on and talk about as well. So, but the alchemist part for me is about all the healing work that we do, all the moving through past traumas, past limiting beliefs, through just getting to a place where we can alchemize everything that's happened before into wisdom, into learning to trust ourselves and learning to trust our intuition, and ultimately transmute that into joy, which is a beautiful place to be.
Absolutely. And I adore the alchemy thread. That's a word that, I think that's been my word for this year, actually. It's been alchemy. I can't remember where it first came to me, but it's kind of like weaved its way into my brand, and it really is like transforming when we've not been going through the best of times, or when we've had experiences or lessons, alchemizing that into something that is so much more powerful and much more pleasant as well, for sure. So when we talk about joy, because you call joy like a frequency, so can you tell us a little bit more about that? What do you mean when you're talking about joy as a frequency?
I think to start with, I think it's always helpful to distinguish between the difference of joy and happiness. People often use the two interchangeably, but actually there is quite an important distinction in my mind anyway. Happiness to me is momentary. Okay. It's very much, goosebumps there. There we go. It's very much tied to external circumstances. Things make you happy. Whereas for me, joy, and it's where I've got to in my life, is joy is that internal frequency, vibration, emotion, whatever you want to call it, that is yours. And when you're sitting in joy, you are feeling good within yourself. You are trusting yourself. You are in tune with yourself, and I mean your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects. And so it's something that can stay with you through the course. And the bit around the frequency bit for me is like it's on the vibrational scale. It's right up towards the top. I can't remember how far. Pretty close to it. And as we know, the higher you move up that scale of frequency, the more the law of attraction will then work in tune with you, and you will attract more. And I think when you sit in joy, gratitude comes naturally, because you see all these things and you experience all these things through the lens of joy. Even having my cup of rose tea, and it just makes me feel so good, and it just makes me smile all the time.
Yeah, like I love that, and that's such a good distinction as well. And I think, ladies that remember that are on the call with us, if you remember that emotional scale, let us know where you are actually at the moment, if you can remember that scale, or have a quick look for the image. But happiness isn't on there as far as I can remember, but joy is, and that's such a lovely distinction between the two, because happiness is it's a bit too fleeting sometimes, isn't it? So what would you say to people, and this might be useful for the ladies that are on the call with us, when we have got external circumstances that maybe aren't what we would typically associate with joy, how do you anchor that frequency?
Yeah, I think that's so important, because I think a lot of pop spirituality talks about, just, the big, write your gratitude list and repeat these affirmations and your life will change forever if you do this 3 times a day. And it just, it's talking about the 1111 portal. It just really flips my knitting, as I was saying, I like to use because I like to knit. But I think, that's why the alchemist bit came for me as well, because it isn't about forgetting your past traumas and experiences. It's not about negating what you're going through in the moment. But as I said, like for me, joy automatically brings gratitude in. And even though you're going through something particularly challenging in the moment, when you're sitting in joy, you're able to see the lessons and the blessings within that. It's not negating what you're going through, but you're able to move through that with a bit more peace, and to know that ultimately you'll come through that stronger in the end, and that you're able to transmute that and alchemize that into even more solid foundation within yourself, in terms of your nervous system being regulated, in terms of the healing work that you've done. Because when that's a solid foundation, even when things are shaking, you can come back to that center every time. And again, for me, the solar plexus and the yellow, it's like, it's where you feel empowered, it's where you feel strong, and where you get your strength from to move through things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are giggling because both Debbie and I have similar feelings, shall we say, or perspectives on your more typical and common manifestation. I don't even want to call them methods. They are methods, and to a certain extent they may work a little bit. They're almost sometimes a bit of a placebo, I often find. And we were giggling because yesterday was 11/11, so it was the 11th of November, and everywhere was the 11/11 portal, like the best day ever to manifest. Now, as a practicing witch, I love a portal. You can create them anytime. You don't have to wait for stars to align and planets to be doing their own thing. But when it comes to these practices, so affirmations, yes, if done correctly, they do link to your neurological pathways, and there's ways of working with them. But for you, what are your favorite practices? Do you have practices that you utilize that you find work with your frequency?
Yeah, I think absolutely, as you said, there's so many different rituals. There's your crystals, there's working with the moon, there's, casting spells, there's the affirmations, the vision boards, the journaling, all the things, and they serve a purpose, as you say. But I think I love that you said that also you're a practicing witch. I wouldn't call myself a fully practicing witch, but I do kind of align to that as well, and that the magic around that. But for me, the magic is within.
Yeah.
And everything else is merely something to kind of enhance the magic within you. And I think, if you, and this is the bit that really gets me with a lot of pop spiritual coaches out there and people on TikTok and whatever, is that they don't actually then take the time to kind of really think about, like, what are the foundations that you're creating. And people then, they repeat the affirmations 3 times a day for a week and nothing happens, and they think that there's something wrong with them. And that gets them stuck in what I call the self-worth loop, that they keep going around, and it reinforces that belief that there's something wrong, or they're just not worthy of having what they're working on manifesting. And they then find more evidence, and it just kind of digs that deeper and deeper and deeper. So often when people come to me, we have to kind of like undo that loop and go back. And I think, I can't remember if we spoke about this in my podcast, but the law of polarity is one law that I work with a lot, in terms of, well, if this is true in terms of like negative experiences reinforcing your beliefs, the opposite can be true as well. So find the experiences that reinforce the what you're working towards.
Yeah, I love that. And, ladies that are listening with us live in the room, we talk about those different universal laws as well, because they're so important. And the law of attraction is the one that gets the limelight, but law of polarity, absolutely. And it's almost like a nice reminder. So when things aren't perhaps going the way that you would like them to go, or you're not getting the results like as quick as the human version of us wants them to happen, we're like an on-demand society. We're like, well, I ordered it, so within an hour it should be delivered, right? And that law of polarity just reminds us that, well, if you're experiencing something that isn't particularly what you want, then the opposite is also. possible, which is absolutely gorgeous. So going back to joy, when did you realize that joy was more of a frequency and it's not just something that you have as like a reward or like as a result of something external to you? When did you realize that actually it's an internal thing?
I was trying to think there actually, and I don't know that there was a specific moment, but I do, and I've spoken about this quite a lot in my own podcasts. Around about this time last year, actually, I was in a group coaching container, and I remember sending a voice note and in tears, saying like my soul's purpose has just landed in my heart, and I've been hiding behind all these other businesses and titles and labels that I'd given myself, and like I just felt the sense of peace come over me, and I just worked every day on anchoring in joy. You know, like my cups of tea, like I'm a total tea Jenny for those. I don't know if everybody's in the UK, but like it's just my moment of joy, whether it's just a normal cup of tea or like my rose tea. And I will never sit and drink my tea while I'm working. I will always take a moment to just pause. But then I started finding other moments of joy, and like literally just dancing in the kitchen or a song coming on or smiling at a stranger. And the more I started embracing moments of joy, just the more just became my frequency. And it's like I was sitting the other day thinking, I don't know that I would ever not feel joyful anymore. Even like thankfully I've not had any challenging situations, and I'm sure that life will throw them to me at some point. But I do feel like I've really got my baseline to that point where even if I dip, I'm not going into the pit of despair. And it is just being conscious and mindful of that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who is on, not necessarily in the pit of despair, but if we think about that emotional frequency range again, joy is very, very near the top. I think it's in like the top 3. If that is so far away from where you are, what would you say to someone who is in like that lower half of that frequency scale? How can we shift up to neutral or beyond that? What's the best recommendations for them?
I think that's really where, and again, this is the journey that I've taken myself on with the help of coaches and other friends and mentors, is that you do need somebody to help you work through some of that. You do need somebody to hold space for you to allow those emotions, and because sometimes what you're going through now brings up past hurts and traumas and past experiences, and you need to move through that, and it's the shadow work. I don't talk about that a lot, but that is the shadow work. It's the opposite of my joy, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it was part of my journey, really going into that pit of despair and anger and rage. And I remember, again, another group coaching container, it was a beautiful meditation within Anna, going down, and I just had this vision of me like wild with my hair like this and my eyes, and I was in this raggedy color like and goosebumps again. But like I had to let go, because I'd suppressed anger for so long in my life, and once that kind of like came out, and now I can still feel angry about things, but I don't feel like I want to punch a wall anymore. But you do unfortunately need to feel the feels, like I like to say, and you can't, if you just put the lid on it and you try and build your frequency of joy to that's always going to be a shaky foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have definitely fallen prey to that as well. I had a nickname when I was in college of Volcano Vicky, because I had really like suppressed things so much, and then I would literally erupt like a volcano. Wasn't pretty. And then after a little while, I then had real problems, and I was scared to get angry because I wasn't able to be angry in like not a controlled way, because it's not that you want to control it, but in a safe way almost. But I adore shadow work. I adore the dark goddesses. It's absolutely beautiful, sacred, and there's definitely a time for it. But I've often found people can get almost stuck in that loop a little bit, and if things aren't going the way that they would hope, it's like, well, what's wrong? There must be something wrong. I must dig and go into those depths and search for what's wrong, or I must stay here until I feel joy and until I can get to this point. And it sort of delays their progression. So for anyone that lands for, what would you say to those people?
Yeah, I think that is the bit, and that's where like having somebody to kind of take you through a process is so important, because you can get stuck in that negative loop and find it really difficult to get yourself out of that. And I think for me, one of the most catalytic parts of the shadow work was my inner child healing. You know, and realizing that, you know, my inner child was somebody who I ignored for a long time, and just kept doing all the things. And, you know, she was shouting and going, hello, you know, I'm trying to help. And I just like, oh, it's fine. I'm just taking along. I'm fine, you know. And in the book that I'm writing, it's not a memoir, but I share personal experiences. And I spoke about that. Like, you know, there was twice in my life where I describe myself as not being unhappy, but not being happy either. And I think it's those moments where suddenly like the little voice popped up and says, like, if you don't do something right now, you know, you're going to end up in that pit of despair again. And you know, even though I didn't know back then, because I was still very unconscious and unaware at the time, but thankfully I did listen to that nudge from within to then move through that, even though it was really difficult situations and really difficult decisions had to be made and people were affected and all the rest of it. But, you know, as there's another saying, I can't remember who said it, we've survived 100% of our worst days ever.
We have.
You know, so that I kind of, whenever I'm going through something difficult, I always remind myself just how strong I actually am, and we all are, which is so important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right in that we need space to be held for us throughout that. And it's funny you say about a time where you weren't happy but weren't unhappy either. And for me, that now if I do have something that kind of happens, or circumstances or whatever that does knock my frequency, that's the kind of place that I will go to. Thankfully, I've, touched wood, not had any experiences that have brought me down the lower end of the frequency scale for a little while. But sometimes being in that neutral space can also be like quite frustrating. You're like, things are a bit like just meh, like it's all right. Or even worse for me, and I don't know whether anyone else will resonate with this, but when you're feeling a certain way, but you don't know really what you're feeling or why you're feeling it, and there is no explanation for it, but you're just like at a meh is the best way I can describe it. How can we turn that around when we're just at a state of like, I don't know what's wrong, if there's anything wrong, I don't know why I feel this way, I just am.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, humans will often seek change in their circumstances, either to move away from pain or to move towards something better. And when you're kind of in that mess state, you've not really got either motivation, because you can't really see anything better, but you're not really feeling the pain either. And I always like to, you know, again, it's that shadow work versus the joy frequency. You know, the shadow work is kind of sometimes moving away from the pain, but working through that pain. But we need to deal with that. But actually moving towards something nicer is always better, because else you're going to have the bungee cord pulling you back all the time. So you kind of need to kind of almost go and do that work to kind of snap that cord so that you can move forward and not get pulled back every single time and self-sabotage. And, you know, every time the limiting beliefs pop up, you can go, right, no, I've dealt with you, I'm fine, I can, you know, I'm moving forward, kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that visual of the bungee cord as well, because it is, and we are constantly on that pain pleasure kind of like cord of which way am I going? And it's almost like, yeah, if we're in the middle, maybe it's not discontent, but it's like, well, I'm just here, I'm just chilling at the moment.
Sometimes
no, go on.
That's okay, you know, because sometimes, you know, we can't always be doing all the things, and we don't always need to have all the discomfort of something not going our way. And sometimes it's okay to be neutral. You know, as I said, I do tend to live mostly in the frequency of joy, and for me, even neutral now is probably not even maybe what other people's neutral may be, but actually, like, because I remember once feeling like I feel a bit meh. And I was like, well, actually, but I'm not meh, but I'm just not quite right up there, but I've not come all the way down. So, but sometimes you just, to get on with things, you just kind of need to be that place, and that's all right as well.
Yeah, and I think it probably will resonate with anyone who is similar to how I definitely used to be, in what I call like overachievers, who are constantly looking for the next thing, and you achieve one goal and you blink and you don't even notice or recognize it because you're on to the next. And that's probably what's like left over for me, is if I'm just in that state but I'm not working towards something, or I've not set a new goal, that it feels just very ugh. I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything. But yeah, you're right, that is okay.
Yeah.
We are okay to just be. Tina makes a really good point where our frequency can actually be lowered because of people around us, not through any kind of like fault of their own, but especially with children or with partners or with loved ones. And then we can't control that because it's not ours. But what can we do that honors whatever they're experiencing and gives to them, especially if it is our children, but still protects our own frequency?
Oh yeah, that is a big one. And as a mother to an 18-year-old boy now as well, you know, he's adventuring the world, and the worries are there. And I think, yeah, I mean, I suppose it depends on who the other person is. You know, whether it's if children are probably the hardest to deal with because they are a part of you. But this is the bit for me. Another, like, I suppose, catalytic awakening was that bit around radical responsibility for myself, and knowing that my reactions to anybody else's actions or behavior is as a result of something within me that's either unmet or unhealed. And that maybe be a simplistic explanation, but it was the best way that I could make sense of it and deal with those kind of situations. And actually, it was the flip for me, the realization actually that I'm not responsible for other people's reactions and behaviors, because as an empath and as a people pleaser, which I'm sure pretty much nearly everybody will identify with, I felt responsible for everybody. And I felt like even if they were getting angry or annoyed at something that I hadn't even done, I felt responsible, you know. But I think it's the control bit. You know, I think so much of our lives we try to control, and we try to control other people with the best intentions, especially when it comes to our children, to keep them safe, to have them be happy and successful and achieve their dreams. But you know, we kind of do need to let some of that go sometimes, and you know, it's not going to stop the worry. But you just need to trust that you have done the best that you can, and that you're still there for them, and just keep that space open for whoever it is that you're supporting or in a relationship with, and be there, you know, when things maybe don't go so well for them, and to kind of help support that and support them through that, because thankfully we are more aware and we are more conscious and awakened, and you know, they might not be into all the woo-woo spiritual, which is not that we are, but we can still give them some support and love from that place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can only imagine with children that it is even harder, but I know, like, when it's my husband, that it's very much going, well, that's his journey and his lessons. And also, not that I want him to experience, you know, certain feelings that aren't high frequency, but I also don't want to take the learning away from him going through that. So, and I guess with children, that's the same, because then they will build up their own way of processing, I guess, as well, that we're not then controlling that for them, that they figure out themselves, well, how do I deal with this, and how does it feel in their own little bodies, I guess.
Yes, 100%. And I, you know, part of me wistfully looks back on my son's early childhood, when, you know, I didn't know all the things that I know now, but I've delved very deeply into my son's natal chart, and it's helped me understand him so much more. He's a Cancer sun, Leo moon, and Aquarius rising, so it's a really tricky balance to strike. But we've kind of worked it out. And I always check his moon phases, because he's a Cancer sun. He's ruled a lot by the moon, so I actually have certain conversations at certain times. I always check, like, when's the best time to have this kind of conversation with him, and it's worked so far. But yeah, it's I think, because, you know, I'm just so grateful that I am aware now, and that we are aware now, whatever age our children are, that we can share some of this awareness with them and give them some of the tools to kind of move through things. But as you say, you know, they need to learn their own ways of dealing with things and processing things. But I suppose what you don't want them to do is come with the limiting beliefs that we've grown up through as a generation of women in this age bracket. What are we, Zennials, millennials, Gen X, or whatever we are? I've been on the class where I was 79, so it was right in the middle. But I think there's the collective awakening happening. So I think this generation of children coming through are going to be complete. And I mean, Gen Z's already at a different place in terms of just owning their shit. I'll never forget my son. I was home visiting in South Africa, and my dad had asked my son, he was 16 at the time, like, do you want to go to the shop or whatever with me? And he just went, no.
No, I do not.
And my dad was kind of like, oh. I was like, go on, your son, because for me, the no would have been, no, I don't want to, because blah, 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 this whole big long story. I was like, I was so proud. I know my dad was, but like, I think he thought he was quite rude, to be fair, but I was like, he doesn't want to go. He said, no, it's a complete sentence.
It is, absolutely. And yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. Also, like with the astrological chart, that's a brilliant combination that he's got, but also that's a really nice example of like the tools being a brilliant like expander and useful, and not something that we just rely on. I think that's really lovely, and I love my astrology.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think, like, for me, and this is the bit, like, I talk a lot about intuition as well as one of the codes that I work with. I worked along, and again, I talk a little bit about this in the book, about like, as my maternal instincts, I listened to everybody else, and I did what I thought everybody else thought a good parent would look like, and ignored my intuition and my mother's instinct. And now, like, once I've started learning his chart, like, I knew my instincts were right. They absolutely were aligned to what's going on for him and his placements and all the rest of it. So it's like, you just need to like listen and tune into that gut feeling and trust it. And despite what everybody else says, just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Big advocate for that. Listen to your intuition always. And how would we know, for anyone who isn't used to kind of tuning in and listening, how would you distinguish that kind of that inner voice? What would you say tells you? Because I feel it in my body, so I know when it is. Also, like, my ego is very loud, whereas my intuition is very subtle. But especially if someone is experiencing like stress or anxiety, and their body's having that kind of energetic wobble, if you like, how would they then be able to tune into their intuition?
I love this question, because this is a technique that I learned. I can't remember who taught me this. It might have been somebody on social media. You need to just take a breath, first of all, because when your nervous system's fried and your head's all over the place and your thoughts are racing, you just need to be still and take a breath. And whenever I'm now faced with a decision, for me, and it's like it's in my body as well, it's like, just if I imagine option A, what feels good, what feels expansive, what feels easy. And if I imagine option B, or whichever way around, what feels contracting, what feels like just like a heavy, you can feel your shoulders dropping or scrunching up, whichever, when you feel the tension. And like, now for me, if it's not an easy yes, it's an immediate no. And that's how I live my life. And I know some decisions aren't maybe necessarily as black or white as that, but it is whatever feels good and expansive and right. And if it's the right decision, things will flow. If it's not, it will feel like you're working hard and you're kind of trudging through mud or treacle, and it's just like everything feels difficult. And even if you decide option B, if that's the one that's maybe not your intuition, it's okay. You can change your mind. You've got free will, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And when I talk about what I'm working on just now, I've actually sat and journaled on that today, about like what are my fears around this being out in the world, and but it's the expansion of it, and it does still feel right. Now I'm still going to go ahead with it, even though I'm like, oh my god. But so coming back to your point, I think it is just like, what feels good and right, what feels not good and not right, and just working with that and going with that. But it can be scary, because sometimes the what feels good and right and expansive doesn't make sense on paper. Me resigning my job at the start of 2025, a really good salary, secure job, and then just like I remember talking to somebody on my podcast about this. I had less of a plan then than I've ever had in my life. to like, and like before I was like, I need to have this amount in my savings account. I need to have this to set up my business so successful. I didn't have any of that. I just went for it. And here I am nearly a year later, and there's more and more abundance flowing in. Even just this very week, three opportunities that have just come, and I've not done a single ritual or journaling of it's not really on my vision board on my screen yet, but I just sat in joy. I just reminded myself every single morning, and one of the affirmations I repeat is, when I sit in joy, opportunities and abundance flow to me. And it just, every single time I anchor into that, more flows in.
Gorgeous. And that is how an affirmation should feel, because it's all to do with your frequency. It's your energy. Energy is everything. And I will say it until I am blue in the face. You can do the things,
yes,
whether that be, you know, we want to take action, we want to get in alignment, we don't just want to like sit at home and just wait for the delivery. But if you're taking your actions, we don't have to do more in order to receive more, but work on that energy. Your frequency is just
and that for me, like the realization of like when coaches talk about live as if it's already happened. And I was like, well, I can't live as if I've got £1 million in my bank account, you know, because I'm book a first class flight to New York just whenever I want to. But the tapping into the joy is my ultimate, and I'm living it, you know. And I had to remind myself this a few months ago, like, I am living it right now. I'm not still manifesting the life of my dreams. I am living it right now, and it's because I'm sitting in joy. And yeah, I want to expand and I want to grow in my business and my life and all the rest of it. But right now, I can truly say I am happy with my life exactly as it is. Doesn't mean I can't have more.
Exactly. And you know, I saw I think it was on Instagram earlier today, and it was this reel, and it was of like marathon runners. And everyone was just like sprinting on by, like it was a race, obviously, as marathons tend to be. But there was this one guy, and he was just having a dance because there was like a band playing at the side. So he basically like stopped running and just was having a dance. And it's like, just enjoy where you are, because yes, you could wake up tomorrow and you've got on that first class flight and you're somewhere wonderful and having an amazing holiday, but also enjoy the journey to that place as well, because you can feel those feelings now. And that for me is the same when I think I've done a few videos about this where it's not faking it.
Yes,
because you can't fake your frequency, and you'll know there'll be signs because what you see around you will reflect what your frequency is, so you'll know. But we can't fake that. It's not faking it. And I think that's where, again, it's the term act as if, isn't it? It's telling us to act. That's not what we
feel as if, really. So I think that's what's just come through for me. And I think like that, you know, like the holidays, the homes, the clothes, the handbags, whatever it is, the money inside. If you're not feeling good inside, it doesn't matter what, you know, the Instagram lifestyle, as I like to talk about, the influencer lifestyle. If you've gone to that fabulous trip to the Bahamas or wherever it is, you've still got to come home. You've still got to come back to your life. And if that's not bringing you joy, that's the happiness. It's happiness in the Bahamas, and you come back and you're not joyful.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where, you know, it's not always about those things. It just actually took me back to last December, and we were in the Caribbean, and it was amazing and beautiful. And halfway through, I got news that my mum had been taken into hospital and was really sick. So I was on this stunning, beautiful beach, but my frequency from like a few hours before was completely different. And it just goes to show, you know, obviously, hopefully no one's ever in that situation, but if you're thinking, well, once I'm on that holiday, or once I'm in that house, or I have that thing, then I will feel like everything's amazing. That's not going to answer those prayers.
and that, you've hit the nail on the head there, in terms, like, you really eloquently put it the way, like I've said it before, but I forgot. It's like, joy isn't the end result of achieving what you desire. Joy is the way to get there.
Yep, we do it backwards.
It's backwards, and you know, people are waking up to that, and I love that. But that is what shifted for me, and that's how I am living, as if I'm living in that joy. I'm feeling as if I've already got that. I've got the freedom.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? And it's, what can you do today that perhaps isn't going to cost £1 million,
Mhm.
that will replicate that feeling for
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And do that. And the other thing that I love to do is I will, where it's not reckless, obviously, and just booking the first class flight. Although I've been known, and I do this quite often, I do book holidays, and I we'll sort that out later. But I will make decisions from that version of me, especially when it comes to business.
Yes.
And at the moment, I'm looking at my business model, my business plan, and I'm like, well, if we have a family, what's the business going to look like? And I'm making decisions from that person that has the baby. So one, it's manifesting the family, but also it's preparation for when I'm in that position.
100%. And I'm the exact same. And there's been a few business decisions that I made in terms of investing money. And again, when I talk about what I'm going to announce, it was like, oh, that's money, more money going out, there's big chunks of money going out. But and I remember sitting with my friend who's a coach, and I was like, what would future Debbie do? What would future Debbie do if she was like super successful in her business? Not that I'm not, but like even more successful. She wouldn't even think about it. She would just do it. And again, it's being sensible. I wasn't going to drain my bank account because I've got bills to pay. But there was enough within me. And that's a bit about energy. And it's not necessarily about money always. But, for me, the whole bit around money and safety around money was how I got to the point of being able to resign from my job. But it's like every time I've released money, more has flowed back in. I was thinking about that earlier. I was out driving and like that. I gifted myself an iPad because I've always wanted one, and I always felt like I could never justify the money. But actually, after I made that decision, that's when these 3 opportunities have come into me again. I was like, yes, there you go. I've cleared space for more to flow in, and God, I don't even know, way more than 10 times. But anyway, it's like, and it's just like because if you hold on to money, it becomes stagnant. If you hold on to anything that's good, it becomes stagnant, it becomes stale. You need to let it flow.
Yeah, this is it. And I talk about this a lot, especially when it does come to making investments. And this is where our intuition is really helpful, because if it feels expansive and that you actually want to do it, it could be coaching, it could be an iPad, it could be a holiday, it could be that you're going to go out to Nando's for your tea. It doesn't have to be anything that's particularly monumental. But if it feels expansive and you're like, oh, I'd really like to do that, and then you try and think of an excuse, then actually you want it. And that's when you can look at it. If it means that you're not going to have food on the table, obviously it's not a wise choice, but you will probably in that case feel the contraction and feel the restriction anyway. But that's always how I kind of judge. But I'm the same whenever I make an investment, especially if it is to do with business or like my own development or growth, whether it's been in education or coaching or mentoring, it normally comes back within 48 hours like duplicated. And it's so fun.
It is, and I just need to keep reminding myself of that. It will come back, and it does. And I've got the proof of it now, and I've had the proof all my life, really, but I wasn't aware of it. But actually, when I sit and especially with feeling safe around the money and the uncertainty around the money, although one of the downloads I got when I was journaling around that was there are endless possibilities in the unknown. And that's what got me to the place of actually typing out the letter and handing it in to resign. Actually anything is possible. That's the law of possibilities. Anything is possible. And the other bit that I like to, I can't remember who said this. I should really write down when I get these nuggets. A desire or a dream is a future memory. It's something that's already happened on a future timeline. I was like, oh yes, that makes sense. So it's possible. And I always now I never envy anybody. I'm never jealous of anybody who's successful, because I look at them and I go, if it's possible for you, it's possible for me. And if it's possible for me, it's possible for you.
Exactly. And you're never taking it from one person for you to have it either. That's another lovely thing to really remember, that just because you have success doesn't mean you're taking it from somebody else. We can all have,
and that's the abundant frequency, isn't it? And when you came on my podcast, I was absolutely all about showcasing all my fellow coaches' work, because I believe that there's enough to go around for everybody, and it's not about gatekeeping. And again, you and I always spoke about this. We're so aligned in terms of our thinking around that, and even just your opportunity for me to come on and share what I'm doing on this is just absolutely amazing, and it just means more will flow in to us and everybody else.
Yeah, and it's celebrating other people as well. And I think this, I know we touched on this earlier, you know, when we talked about the different generations. I think this is now starting to take shape, and more people are kind of sort of realizing that, you know, we get further lifting each other up. Yeah. And that's gorgeous. It's not everywhere, it's not everyone, but again, another good measure of what your frequency is. If you're around people that are cheering you on, supporting you, providing these opportunities, it's a good sign that your frequency's pretty high up, which is awesome. Definitely. So I can't wait to know what you're because I have also been kept in the dark about this one. So it's not that I know before anyone else, but can you please put me out of my misery and tell me what you're up to?
I've hyped this up so much now. I hope it doesn't disappoint. I just need to take a breath. Whew. Okay, I'm going to just share a little bit before what I was journaling on today. So I have worked a lot this year on owning my voice and speaking my truth. I used to very much stay safe by flying under the radar, and you know, I've come such a far way, and my book is part of that journey, and I'm quite happy to talk about that, and it will come out into the world when it's ready. But the other big project that I've been working on is creating an app. Oh. Oh my God, that really stuck in my throat there. Wow. That's the first time I've said it out loud very publicly. Thank you.
Love it. I don't know how we're doing these reactions, but I'm here for them.
So I've basically, my book is called The Joy Frequency, and it's 5 codes. And it's really the work that I've done to get to where I am. And the 5 codes are healing and inner child work and the shadow work, because that is the foundation. It's not a 5-step framework, because I talk about it being a cycle, because you'll come through these every time. So you've got healing and inner connection. You've got your clarity and intuition, because like if you're not clear on what you really desire in life, you know, you're always going to be chasing other people's dreams.
Yeah.
But also then tuning into your intuition and feeling what is right for you. And then there's the kind of central part is the self-worth and the joy that, you know, everything builds around that. And then the 4th one is boundaries and energy. And, you know, like once you get to that place of like the high vibe space, you know, and as you said, they're the people that you surround yourself with, you know, how do you protect your energy? Because sometimes you can't always just remove yourself from people's life.
Yeah.
You know, so there's that, and then there's the aligned action part, because you know, surrender isn't just sitting back and everything landing in your lap. You need to actually apply for the job, or you know, date people if you want to meet your soul partner or whatever it may be. So those are my 5 joy codes. So that's what the book's about. But the app is essentially going to have the codes within that. It's going to have, I've already created the content. So the foundational content is 2 meditations per code. There's journals for each, journal prompts, and like coaching audios that I've put in as well. And I'm going to create subliminals and tapping scripts and everything for it as well. So I'll be adding more and more on. So it is officially with Apple and Google to kind of review and get approved. So it was submitted last Friday, I think, so 2 weeks, I think. So hopefully I'll hear maybe next week. I'm manifesting a quick turnaround. The team that have been developing it have been really good at keeping me right and making sure that everything's good. So there's some free content on there around what the manifestation style is and like how you can develop that, you know, where you might have some blocks, and then you can go deeper into the actual codes, and that is a paid subscription. It's going to be, you know, my launch offer is going to be nominal, just because I want to just get people into it. And so the reason I'm announcing it in your group as well is because I'm looking for beta testers. So again, I've not actually created a sign-up page yet. I need to do that tomorrow. But I can share with Victoria. If you are interested in being a beta tester, and you get access for free for a month, and the only ask for me is that you give me some feedback, both in terms of like the technical aspects, any glitches, you know, how you access things, and then also just the content as well. And then I'll probably, you know, I'm kind of like, I don't know when to promote it because it's Christmas time. I'm like, you know what, it'll come together. I'm not planning this big launch plan. You know, I just want to birth it out into the world. But I think I felt quite anxious about it because I've sat with it for so long and I've worked on it for so long to get it to this point. Not so long, 2 months in terms of creating the content, because I was so in flow with it. It was just like it was coming. but now it's kind of like, oh, my baby's going to be out there in the world in other people's hands, and I've not got that control bit over it. The bit that what I was journaling on today was really around the fact that, you know, this is the expansion for me. I need to get used to this new identity, because I'm kind of like, you know, the question's like, well, what will happen if it's successful? Well, I'm going to be seen as this person now, this thought leader in this space, and, you know, can I live up to that? And the self-doubt is still creeping in, but I worked through it. I did the work, and I did the tapping, and all the things, and so, you know, to get to this point of being able to share it, even though it was still quite hard to get out.
You did it. You said it. Well done.
Thank you very much for allowing me the space to do that.
No worries at all. And it's so exciting. And what a lovely way for you to have more of an impact as well, and spread the message that you are. I think that's stunning. And just wait till your book's out as well, and you're like, hang on a second, people are reading this without me like supervising.
Yeah.
That was such a strange thing for me. I was like, wait. People I don't know are reading this.
And for me, it's just about like making it accessible to people, you know, because not everybody can work one-to-one, you know, and that's okay. But I just want to share my wisdom and my knowledge with the world.
And that's beautiful. And also, you know, from like a business perspective as well, you are only one person, and you have so many hours and energy that you want to work with people. So you can go on that first class flight to New York and still be helping people at the same time, which is awesome. Oh, how exciting. I can't wait to see it and play with it. And I promise to try not to break it.
No, I don't think you'll be able to. I'll be absolutely fine.
Me and technology. That's the Aquarius in me. I always say, if anything does break, I'm like, it's because I'm just too powerful.
I love that.
I'm too powerful for this muggle technology that we have.
Love it.
So exciting. So yes, please do keep us posted. And yeah, we can absolutely get behind that as well. And the book.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Whenever that's ready to be birthed into the world as well. And if anyone's got any final questions, those that are in the room with us, just let us know, and we can ask away. But how did you find the book writing process? How was that for you?
So it's going to be 3 parts. Part 1 was quite easy because it was all about joy, what joy is and what joy isn't. That was the whole happiness bit. But the part 2 is the 5 joy codes. So it is a lot meatier. But kind of as we entered the shadow period of Mercury retrograde, things started slowing down a bit. And I was like, I'm not forcing this, because I absolutely want the energies being created in to be joy. And so I'm not forcing it. I don't have a deadline that I'm working to. I'm very much like, I'll work on it when it feels right, and it will come out into the world when it feels right. I've kind of got my birthday in my head, the 15th of March, because I kept seeing 1503 just as I started thinking about it. And I was like, okay, maybe, but I'm not tying myself to that. So it was, what was the term I used in the newsletter? I'm manifesting, not micromanaging.
I love that. Yes, we all need to remember that. We are manifesting, not micromanaging. The universe doesn't appreciate being micromanaged.
Yeah. I see. I've got the chat open. I see Linda's asked a question.
So lovely, Linda. Lots of congratulations, which is beautiful. And we've all been going hard on the reactions on here, which is great fun. So many of us are used to pushing or controlling outcomes. 100% agree. What's helped you personally learn to release that and trust your alignment? Great question.
Very good question. The bit that jumped out at me or through me when you asked that question was, I just need to come back to it now. Rejection is protection or redirection. And so the bit about, like, you know, if you get a no for something or things don't go your way, it's about trusting that there's something better out there. And that was something I really had to kind of learn to get comfortable with. But I think that the alignment bit and the aligned action bit, which is so important for me, the two things that I really kind of through my work have come to is that, so people talk about surrender and detachment. I can't remember if it was you I spoke about with us.
Yeah, we had this conversation because we were so aligned on this one. So we were like, people get it so wrong.
Yeah, so people say detach from the outcome, but actually what you're detaching from is your identity. And the surrender is the bit about surrendering to whatever may be or may come from what you're doing. So like detached from your identity for me means like you are like, so this app for me, like I need to detach from the identity of Debbie who stays under the radar and who's staying small and doesn't shout from the hills about what she's doing, and step into that. But the surrender part is, and I was coming back to the Mercury retrograde when you were talking about this earlier. I'm working on something very techy during Mercury retrograde. And
why not?
Oh my God! But I was born under a Mercury retrograde, and for some reason I feel like I don't get as affected by it. Things still happen, but I'm just trusting the process. I'm not forcing it, and it's taken a bit longer for the app in terms of the development part because it was backwards and forwards. But I never once got frustrated or whatever, and just knew that every step I was taking was towards that. And the alignment bit for me is like staying very present, Linda, and like in the moment, what is right for me right now, what is right for the decision or the path that I'm on, rather than thinking 10 steps ahead, because that's where the control bit comes in, or the pushing bit. And again, the forcing and the controlling and the pushing, if that's where you're sitting in, then you're not taking aligned action, and it's not your intuition saying to you, this isn't right. And you kind of need to just stop and reset and think, right, okay, which way am I going next? But you only need to know the next step. And that's a hard one for somebody who's been a bit of a control freak and very organized and had paths and spreadsheets mapped out for 5 years. And just now, like, well, I'm okay for the next couple of months. That's fine. More will come. It's fine.
Absolutely. I hope that answers that question for you, Linda. And it's so funny. And actually, thinking about this, Mercury retrograde is the best time for you to be doing this, because whenever a planet's in retrograde, it invites us to reflect on whatever that planet represents. And Mercury is communication. So
rising.
This is ideal for you to be reflecting on, right, what communications do I want in this app? Is it in the voice that I want it to be in? The best time.
Yeah. And I'm a Gemini rising as well. So
same as me.
Yeah, it's all Merc. No wonder we're so aligned.
Yeah. Makes sense. Oh, I love that. And yeah, the detachment and surrender, so key to have those distinctions, because people get really muddled and try and just do nothing, and that's detachment. And yeah, it's not quite what is meant by those terms. It's linguistical nuances, isn't it? But it's important. And those of you that are coming on retreat with me in March, this is why we're having a funeral, which people are like, oh my God, you're having funerals. I'm like, yes, for your old identity.
Yeah. I did that. I was part of a collaboration in a book last year, and one of the rituals that we did for that was a funeral and a eulogy, and it was so powerful. Like I've thought about it the other day. I want to go back and read what I wrote.
Yes,
it's so powerful to do that exercise, and it really is like a symbolic releasing of who you've been.
Exactly. I can't wait. And yeah, it's an honoring as well, and it's a celebration, isn't it, of that version? But that version, they can't be the one that takes you to the next place, and that's okay.
Yeah, you can't manifest your future from the identity that's got you to where you've been.
No, and that's okay.
If you want to grow and expand.
Yeah, if you're happy in the meth zone, the neutral zone, chill out there for a little bit. But yeah, absolutely, we are progressing. It's a different version, like it would be if you were in a book. Character development and all that.
Yes.
I love it. I'm just going to do a final check for any more questions, but also where can we find you? Where's the best place for us to connect with you outside of this call?
So I kind of hang out pretty much on all the platforms, although I'm most active on either Facebook or LinkedIn. I kind of took a pause from LinkedIn for a while, but I've been active on there for the last couple of weeks. And then obviously my website, actually my links page is the best, because that's what I keep up to date. So it's debbielucas.me, so that's .me/links. And that's where all my kind of latest offers and news and everything is. Thanks, Victoria, for putting that in. And I'll share that all on my bio for you to put out as well. But yeah, please reach out. I will create a waitlist form tomorrow for the beta testing. And if you are interested, you can sign up there, and I can keep you posted. But yes, I'm looking for about 5 to 10. That's quite a big range. 8 that feels right. 8 people to kind of test it for me. 8 is my personal numerology. I've been to numerology. 8's my number.
It'll be number 8 then. Okay. If there's number 9, you're not getting in.
Yeah. No, so yeah. I mean, if there's more that are interested, I'd be truly honored and grateful that people would want to come on that journey with me. But yeah, it's what I want to hold space for and what I'm setting the intention for.
Absolutely. And we can share that on our little group as well. For those that aren't with us on the call live this evening, we can absolutely share that with them as well. And yeah, this has been awesome. I think we are good for questions. So thank you so much, and I'm very excited for you, and I can't wait to a first play as well.
Thank you.
It with us, because yeah, I know what it's like when you've got such a beautiful project and a baby, and you are like, oh, like release this to the world. So thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to share that.
Anytime, and thank you, my lovely ladies, for joining us this evening as well. And we will all catch up very soon.